in itself, not based on the person that says it, can either be true or it can be false. Like, for example, if I say today, the weather is hot. We're all sitting here. This statement of mine is either truthful or it's not. We can go outside and check, but the statement itself, by itself, it is either true or false, right? Istikhbar, the next one that he puts, it has the letters we said, alif, sin, and ta. What is this? What does this mean? What do we say? Alif, sin, ta? To seek, talab, right? Alif, sin, ta always means talab. So here, istikhbar, it is istifham. You want to, I'm telling you, outside the weather is hot. When I tell you the weather is hot, and you say, is it hot? You are seeking the answer to this. So this is what istikhbar is. Now, khabar, when you move away from the statement and into the person that is making the statement, it is this person, for example, even though we said the meaning of it is like the khabar itself is either truthful or it is the opposite, only applies to the actual khabar, to the actual statement that you're making. But if we look at the person that is making it, sometimes the statement will always be the truth. This khabar will always be the truth. For example, the Quran, does it have khabar inside of it? Yes. This khabar that we are being told, is there a possibility that it is not truthful? No. It is always the truth. The Prophet ﷺ, in his speech, he has khabar. He has things, his statements that he is making. Are these statements, this understanding that we have said, do they apply to it? Yes or no? They don't apply to it because this is the Messenger ﷺ. Now, this is in truthfulness. Now, if we say somebody like Musaylama, what do we know him as? Musaylama al-Kadhdhab. The statements, the khabar that he comes with to us, is there a possibility that it is being truthful or no? No, because his name is the liar. So when we look at his statements, we don't say that it's either truthful or it's the truth. We say it's all lies. This is kadhab. And forever he's going to be known as al-kadhab because of what he came with. Not only, the interesting thing is, at his time, he was not the only one that claimed prophethood. Right? There was others that claimed prophethood. So many others, especially after the Prophet ﷺ died. But for him, the reason this name is stuck to him is because he was a Muslim. He left the Prophet ﷺ. He came to Medina, became a Muslim. On his way, he just decided, khalas, Allah has sent me also as a messenger. So when he got to Yamama, he sends a letter to the Prophet ﷺ that today Allah has decided to split our spoils, half to the people of Mudar and half to our people. So some of it belongs to the Quraysh, the others belong to us. And then we know what the Prophet ﷺ sent back to him. So the statements that he makes, if we take this understanding, we say sometimes it's the truth and sometimes it's a lie. That's if we just look at the statement. But once we move from there and we look at the person that is making the statement, then we say all of his statements are lies. If we look at the statements, the khabar that is being made by Allah or the Prophet ﷺ, we say that is the truth. Every single thing. And one, pillar of Iman, it is to believe in the khabar that hasn't even happened. And also the khabar that happened long before us, right? For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us in the Quran, the stories of the previous nations. The Prophet ﷺ tells us the stories of the previous nations. And this statement, if it is said by any other person, we would look and say, it can be truthful, or it can be not truthful. But when it comes from the Prophet ﷺ, everything is the truth. When it comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, everything is the truth. Even the things that will happen in the future, like things, the signs of the hour, the day of judgment, Jannah, Jahannam, the punishment of the grave, all of these things, we say, they are the truth that is coming from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, istikhbar, these are just questions. Like, did Muhammad stand? Was Muhammad here? These are things that in themselves, they don't have, like, you can't say, you have to give an answer and you can't say it's either a lie or the truth. If I tell you, is Muhammad here? You can't say this is a false statement, right? Because this is a question. And you're going to answer it and say yes or no. So this is what istikhbar is. Now he broke it down into 4. The next 3 that he adds that's not found in this print of ours, but is found in the other prints. He says, وَيَنْقَسِمُ أَيْضًا, like it's also divided. When he says أيضًا here, this also, what he's trying to tell us is the people of usul generally, this is how they have divided kalam into these 4 things. A command, which we'll go over the next time, a prohibition, a khabar, or istikhbar. But he says it can also be one of these 3 things. Now let's go to qasam. This is an oath that you're taking, a swearing. And they're done in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when you swear by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are 3 letters that are the letters of swearing. What are they? So waw, ba, and ta. Wallahi, billahi, tallahi. We know wallahi, right? We use this a lot. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, وَتَاللَّهِ لَأَكِيدَنَّ أَصْنَامَكُمْ, because it's in the Quran. Swearing by Allah, we're going to destroy the idols. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says, Wallahi, لَأَغْزُوَنَّ قُرَيْشٍ, we're going to one day overcome the Quraysh. These are swearing. Okay, so this is what qasam is. The next one, what did we say? Ard. This is a suggestion that is made like in a soft way, in a general way. For example, أَلَا تَأْتِي إِلَيْنَا, will you not, come to us? Or can you not can you visit us? This is a suggestion that you are making, right? The next one is tamni, wishfulness. Now this breaks down into like the understanding we should have of this is there is wishful thinking in things that will never happen, and wishful thinking in things that can happen, but it's very difficult. Like there's some difficulty that is attached to it. For example, the poet, he said, لَيْتَ الشَّبَابَ يَعُودُ يَوْمًا, how I wish my youth would return one day. فَأُخْبِرُهُ بِمَا فَعَلَ الْمَشِيبُ, so that I can tell it what old age has done to me. Right? Is there a possibility that this statement of his, right, لَيْتَ الشَّبَابَ يَعُودُ يَوْمًا, that my youth, I hope that one day it returns, or I wish that it returns. There is no possibility of this happening. Right? So this is wishful thinking with no possibility. Or somebody says, how I wish I had wealth, like the poor person, how I wish I had wealth so that I can go and perform Hajj. Is this wishful thinking? Yes. It's not impossible, but it is going to come with difficulties. So this is what, like the wishful thinking, this is what it means. One that is impossible to happen. Like we said, how I wish my youth would return. Or how I wish I had wealth, and this is the one with a possibility but with difficulties. How I wish I could get some money to go and perform Hajj. Or how I wish I had wealth so that I can give it in sadaqah. Right? These are the, how many ways? 7 ways that kalam is broken down into. You can take all of these 7 and turn it into 2. into two of them. And the two is khabar and insha. So khabar, we've already spoken about. And insha is everything else that is not khabar. So amrun wa nahi wa istikhbar wa qasam wa ard wa tamanni. All of these are al-insha. So khabar is by itself. And then you have the insha, you group all of them together. Generally, when the other usuliyin, they do it, they take out of the four, they remove khabar, and they say the amr and the nahi and the istikhbar is insha. But he comes and he says these other three are also part of insha. Right? Insha. So khabar is by itself. Something that the speech in itself is either truthful or not, and everything else is insha. Right? So if you tell somebody, stand, this is not khabar. This is a command, therefore it falls into insha. Now, a command, can it be khabar? A command or a prohibition? Can it be khabar? Can it be can it be truthful or not truthful? Yes or no? A command. Let's think about this. So majority of the time, it's not khabar, right? Like I can't tell you stand, and you look at me and say this is either true or false. You can't say that, right? But there are some times where in the khabar itself, in some Allah telling us something or somebody telling us something, we can look at it and say there is a command here. For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us in the Quran, وَالْوَالِدَاتُ يُرْضِعْنَ أَوْلَادَهُنَّ حَوْلَيْنِ كَامِلَيْنِ. That the mother breastfeeds the child, the newborn, for how long? 2 years. Is this khabar or is it a command? It is a khabar. It is like a statement. It is a truthful statement, but also in it is a khabar. I mean, there's a command inside of it that you should be breastfeeding for 2 years. This is the command that is there, right? Or, for example, can we touch the Quran when we don't have wudu? Of course, to all of us. Can we read the Quran or touch the Mus'haf when we don't have wudu? Let's hear everything. Yes or no? The people that said yes, if I were to ask you, this is a ruling that you have given me. Is there any statement in the Quran or in the Sunnah that tells us do not touch the Mus'haf without, like command us to not touch the Mus'haf without having wudu? Like we should have wudu when we touch it. A command. لا يمسه إلا المطهرون. Is this a command or is it a khabar? Think about this. This is a khabar, right? Because what we're saying is لا يمسه إلا المطهرون, that only the pure touch it. Only the pure touch it. This is not a command, but this is a khabar. You're telling me something. And it can be truthful or it can be the other way. But inside of it, there's a prohibition that is there, right? It's telling you, do not touch it except if you are tahir, if you are pure. And one of the ways that a person is pure is wudu. And this is why in the Shafi'i madhab and the Maliki madhab, if you were to look at like their fiqh books and say, look at the chapter of touching the Quran, they will bring this khabar. Even though it's not a command, but we know there's like something that is this prohibition that is hidden inside, and they will say here, even though it is a khabar, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is commanding us to not, or prohibiting us from touching it, except if you are tahir. And tahir means you have wudu. Yes.
What if you use the Quran with your phone?
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. What do you guys think? What if you use the Quran on your phone? It's not considered Mus'haf. So let's actually just step back a little bit. Let's get to that. This is the proof that they use to say the Quran, you don't have to have wudu, like you have to have wudu in order to touch it. But can you come up with like a counter argument to say You don't have to have wudu to touch it. If we were to just think, we could potentially say, for example, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told Abu Hurairah that the believer is always tahir. That the believer is always tahir. Right? One day, Abu Hurairah was in a state of janaba, and he saw the Prophet ﷺ and he went away from him. So the Prophet ﷺ asked him, why did you go away from us? Why didn't you join us? And he says, I was in the state of janaba. I didn't want to be next to you when I was najis. And he said, the believer is always in state of purity. You can say from here, you can say, لا يمسه إلا المطهر, that only the people that are tahir can touch it, means the believers. You can make that argument, right? So if we make this argument, what are we doing here now? Let's take one lesson back, right? We are going to look at these two, and there are other proofs for both sides that they use, right? We're going to look at them and then decide of one. Which one is more abhar to us? Which one is more clear, like clear to us? Not to us, but to the people that can actually do this stuff, right? So then they will tell you, one group will tell you, you don't have to touch it. Because these are the adillah, these are the proofs that we have put forth, and these are the proofs that we have put behind. Therefore, these proofs tell us you can touch it without wudu. Do you guys get it now? How you come to these rulings? Through adhan, through using this example. Right? Now your question, the mushaf on your phone, reading. The mushaf are like, the pages in which the Quran is printed. And this is all that's on there. The phones, there's more than just this on there. And this is why even some say, those that say you don't have to have, you have to have wudu to touch the mushaf, they restrict the mushaf to the Quran only. Like the actual, the masahif that we have. But let's say you had like an English translation on the side. Let's say that instead of like having Arabic and English, it's all English. We would still call this the Quran, but they would say this is not what the mushaf is. So once you added the English translation on the side or the footnotes on the side, this removes it from being the actual mushaf. And then obviously the phone will be far removed from there. Right, if you take this understanding. So does that answer your question? Inshallah, one day, we'll throughout the thing, we'll give more examples like this, just so that we for sure know this, okay, this is how this fiqh stuff came about. All right? So khabar can sometimes have a command and can sometimes have a prohibition inside of it, even though it is just supposed to be a statement like the two that we gave. All right? Any questions here? Now let's go down. Let us go, and he says, وَمِنْ وَجْهٍ آخَرٍ. From another perspective, speech is broken down into two parts. You have, he says, حَقِيقَةً وَمَجَازًا, or حَقِيقَةً وَمَجَازًا. So you have literal, right? Like literal, and then what's the opposite of literal? Figurative speech. So majaz is what? Figurative. The haqiq is the literal statement. Today we'll try to understand this haqiq. He says, فَالْحَقِيقَةُ, he tells us next, he says, مَا بَقِيَ عَلَى مَوْضُعِهِ. Speech that is literal are words or statements that have stayed the way that they were intended to be. Like the way that they were placed, and they still continuously are used in that manner. That is what literal means. For example, when we say lion, what comes to your mind? Aywa, it's an animal. Lion, like the lion from Lion King. Right? You think of an animal, wild, has a mane, king of the jungle, whatever, right, comes. Right? So you think this is a lion. This is the first thing that comes to you. It doesn't work as well in English. But if I were to tell you, Muhammad is like a lion, what are you going to think? What am I saying? It is a metaphor. But can it be used in that manner? If we take this understanding, it will remove, once you say that lion, like Muhammad is a lion, you have taken it from where it was, like what it was intended when the word was laid down. Let's go for another word. You say mouse. What comes to your mind? The rodent. Burns houses down, as we're told by the Prophet ﷺ, right? Turn off the flames, because it will come and it will, like the embers will fly, and now the house burned up. We don't have those kind of fires anymore, right? So we know this is what a mouse is. If you went into a store, like you went to Best Buy, and you told them, I want a mouse. Is he going to bring the rodent, or is he going to bring something else? Something different, right? He's going to bring the mouse of the computer. What is the actual haqiqi? Like, what should he give you when you ask for that? If he brought you a mouse at Best Buy, who is wrong here? The person that asked for the mouse or the person that brought it? Not the person that asked. The person that brought it. If they bring an actual at Best Buy, if you went to a pet store and you said, I want a mouse, and he brought you a computer mouse, then you said, something's wrong with this person that's bringing it, right? Because like the term, the kalam, or the word, the way that it was put down, this is what it was supposed to mean. So that is one understanding of like literal speech. And then he says, waqila. He says, what does waqila mean? Does anyone know? Like qila? So it's been said. Generally, when people say this, do they mean it's like their statement or somebody else's statement? Like others, right? So here he says, others have also said. This is what, the first one is what I'm telling you haqiqi means, right? For something to stay on how it was intended. So he says, مَسْتُعْمِلَ فِي مَسْتُلِحَ عَلَيْهِ مِنَ الْمُخَاطَبَةِ. He says, others have said, or it has been said, that literal speech, it is what a group of people have come together and decided that this is what it means when you say this thing. Like we have decided today that a mouse can be one of two things. And based on who you're talking to, the mouse changes. At Best Buy, it means a computer mouse. At the pet store, at the zoo, it means the animal. Another example is when you, let's say, what is one word that has two meanings? Somebody give me an idea. Heal. So like heal over here, or heal like in get better. Two meanings. So I know the heal, our body part. Is that HEEL, right? And then we know heal like as in get better, and also heal as in stop, right? Not heed is to take heed, but like heal, like to heal. That stop, right? Other words that have a general meaning and then a meaning that we have all agreed that this is what it means. No words? Okay.
It happens a lot in slang. Like if you say something's cool, it's not literally cool.
It's not cool. Or something's hot. It's not hot. It's not like heat hot, right? So this is like he's saying, if we've agreed that a word means something, it can be a literal meaning, not in the sense that it is literal, right? Like when we say hot, something's cool. This is a literal meaning that we're giving you without the literal meaning of the word cool. Does that make sense? We've all agreed that this is what heal means, right? Therefore, it is a literal statement that we're making. We'll understand it on the next page. He says, وَالْمَجَازُ figurative. He says, مَا تَجَوَّزَ عَنْ مَوْضِعِهِ, whatever is removed from its original intended place. Like when you say, for example, they'll give us examples later. You say, for example, you say, this person is like a lion. He's not an actual animal, but he has some characteristics of the lion. Or when you say, this car has this many horsepower. This horsepower is not how many horses are actually carrying it, right? But it's if there are horses to carry it, the way that it moves is like the combination of, say, 200 horses, like that. They'll give us later. Turn to page 7. Everyone turn to page 7. So he says, فَالْحَقِيقَةُ, literal speech is broken down, is understood in one of 3 ways. إِمَّا لُغَوِيَّةٌ, like in the language itself. أو شرعية, or in the Sharia, how the Sharia understands it. Or عرفية, how like culturally we understand this statement. That's what these 3 mean. Now, when he says لغوية, right, in the language, if I had asked you, what does salah mean? Or let's go back to an example we gave, I think 2 weeks ago. We said as-siyam. Siyam, what is siyam? What does this word mean? In the language, it means imsak. Right? So in haqiqah, like literal, if I say siyam, in language, I mean to hold off from something. But in the Sharia, what does it mean? The fasting, morning to night, right? Sunrise to sunset. This is what the Sharia means. They, to him, both of these words are haqiqah. They're literal. To others, this siyam is different now. The siyam is not, you can't use it in the language anymore. And that's why, for example, what is salah? What does salah mean? What is salah?
Prayer.
It means prayer. You start with the takbir, you finish with the taslim. These actions that are contained in the middle of these 2 actions. This is salah. What does salah in the language actually mean? Dua.
Yeah.
It means dua, right? So salah is dua. Now, there are some people from the Usuliyin, they say you cannot, once it has a literal meaning in the Sharia, we can no longer say that it has a literal meaning in the language. So whenever we say salah from now on, we don't intend to mean dua. We intend to mean this prayer that we are talking about, because this is the literal meaning of the word now. And the proof that they use for this is, do we use salah and siyam in our everyday language the way that it was intended, like in the language itself? Or has it just become that when I say salah, when I say I am going to pray, this pray, you understand it as I'm going to pray one of the 5 prayers or the sunnah? Or do you understand it as I'm going to make dua? We only understand it in the salah, the actual salah.
But we always say salat ala nabi.
Okay. Salat ala nabi is what? Let's look at this. It is a dua. What kind of dua are you making on the Prophet? You're making Allahumma salli ala Muhammad.
Yeah.
Right? You're making Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. The people that tell you that this is not, like it is outside of the Sharia, they say this salah also has the meaning of the Sharia. Instead of saying it has the salah of ad-dua on the Prophet ﷺ. Like they would just restrict it to as-salah. So when you say Allahumma salli, it is part of the salah we're doing. That's how they would explain it to you. Or they can tell you, this is the only time that you would use it, outside of it. And this is the urfi that we have kept from it. What we have agreed the salah is going to be used as. But to him, to hear this book that we're going through, He would say this is literal in what sense? In the first sense, lughawi. Right? Because he's maintaining these three like separations of in the Sharia, it can have a literal meaning. In the language, it can have a literal meaning. In our culture, it can have a literal meaning. Some of the usuliyin, they say, if it is not as it was intended, then it becomes something different. It's not literal anymore. Is this clear?
Yeah, so the example that she gave, Salah Nabi,
Mhm.
you never say Salah Nabi.
Hey,
You always say Salah You have to clarify it.
and the Prophet ﷺ.
Right.
So this
Otherwise, if you just say Salah, we
Mhm.
still understand it as
is as-salah, salah,
Takbir al-Taslim.
the takbir taslim. So this is like in language, it has become the Shar'i meaning has went to the point where it is like the literal meaning. For example, we said siyam. Where do we know in the Quran is used as the language? What was the example? As Zakaria, Maryam. She says, "Inni nadartu lirrahmani sawma." That I have taken an oath with Allah that I am going to be fasting. And then she explains this, and what does she say? فَلَنْ أُكَلِّمَ الْيَوْمَ إِنسِيًّا. So this psalm that she is saying, it is the lughawi, literal meaning of it. That I'm going to hold myself back. Hold myself back from what? From talking to any human being. This is what she's saying. But today we say psalm, the only thing that comes to us is Ramadan or the sunnahs that come with it. Right, this is psalm. Another example, like let's move away from these words. Today, if I said a dabba, in English, what do we translate this as? A riding beast, a riding animal. To some people, a dabba means what? Himar, the donkey. And it's only used for the donkey. Now, would we be considered, for example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, Wallahu khalaqa kulla dabbatin mimma. That Allah created all of the dabba from water. فَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ يَمْشِي عَلَى بَطْنِهِ وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ يَمْشِي عَلَى رِجْلَيْنِ وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ يَمْشِي عَلَى أَرْبَعٍ. That there are some of these dabba, they move in the ground on their stomachs. There's some that walk with 2 legs. There are some that walk with 4 legs. Right? This dabba, does it mean the donkey? No, because donkey does not walk on the stomach. So now we can say all animals. How many animals walk on 2 legs? How many animals? Let's think. Like, what animal walks on 2 legs? Chicken, penguins, monkeys, and some other animals that walk on 2 legs. If somebody told you, we can also be called dabba here, because we walk on 2 legs, this would be offensive to us, right? Especially to the one that considers the dabba the donkey, right? If in his way that like his culture, dabba means donkey, he's going to get offended. Some of us like in English, we say you have like the animal kingdom. Are we part of the animal kingdom?
Yes.
Are we animals? Like as humans, are we considered like animals, right?
Yeah.
This is only to who? Not to all of us. The people that focus on, the division of species. And they'll say this is animal kind, this is everything else. We might take offense to that. But to them, this is what they've come to. Or today, you can refer to the dabba as being your car, right? The car can also be called the dabba. And you say it walks on 4s, some of them on 2s. Right? So all of these are in the lugha, and in the culture. And also, like in the culture, statements that we make in like in slang. And for example, you know, there are words, especially in Ammi, right? Depending on where you are, it's a disaster to completely use it. Let me ask you, who's Egyptian here? 1, 2, 3. If I were to ask you, what does, give me the Ammiya word for a prostitute. What's the word?
Here.
That word, right? Like, there's the actual Arabic term that the Prophet ﷺ would use, right? And what was the word? Bagha, right? Like, that's the actual like Arabic term, but nobody uses that to mean that anymore. No one uses that to. If you actually take that word, well, one day we're in a gathering, and there's some Moroccans, and there's some Egyptians, and these are people that are older. So, like, this is a muhadara, and people are taking turns speaking. So, I won't say the word, but the Moroccan, he's introducing the Egyptian, and he's introducing him, and he says to him, he uses that word. He says, "You are from this," and the Egyptian gets very angry because in his culture, he's being insulted. So people start saying, like, what's happening? Like, why are you reacting like this? He's Moroccan. This means someone that just recently got married. But to him, this meant completely different. This meant the word we said. So he said, Khalas, if this is what I am, we're all of this. And all of us are like this. Because everybody here is married. Right? So you have this of, like, in the culture, like, it can be a small amount of people, it can be a bigger culture, and different from everywhere else the way that you would use it. And generally, you would find this in slang, not in actual, like, it's very hard for people to speak like English, not slang, and have words where to this room, this is what it means, to this side, this is what it means. Like if we were bigger cultures, right? Like the general language, it means it's all the same. Then when you go, there's some words we would say to each other that mean one thing to us, that would mean a completely different thing to over here, right? Any questions on these three? It being broken into the language, a literal language. Let's go back to the example of the mouse. In the language, a mouse is a mouse, it's the animal. In the Sharia, let's skip over for that one. And then we go to the urf, the culture. The mouse can mean one of two things. It can mean the mouse at the pet store and the mouse at an electronics store. Right? This is what we have all agreed in this bigger culture now. The culture is much bigger because the entire world knows a mouse means one of two things. Like in the English language, when you say mouse, it means one of these two things to all of us. Or even when you say a bird, or you say a fruit, what do these are, like, we know them in the language, what a bird is and what a fruit is. If you add a Y at the end of these two words, culturally, we have said this is what they mean. Like, we know what they mean culturally, and it means different than the language, right? Even though you have the fruit and you have the bird. When somebody's birdie or when someone's fruity. Do we all understand? Culturally, we have agreed this is what this word means. The Shar'i words, literal Shar'i words, are words that have a meaning. What are those words?
No, it's what you're saying.
Khalas. Okay, let's do this. Who know? Okay. Let's example right here.
Maybe
if someone says this person is fruity, talking about a man, how many of us know what we are saying? Raise your hand if you know it.
It's not. It's not used here that way.
It's used a lot. But now this what ends up happening is we've made it like into a smaller culture. Not everyone has agreed to this meaning, but we go back to the previous page and he says what in istilah that they have agreed together it means. There's enough people that have agreed to the meaning of fruity in this sense to where we say this is the literal meaning of it. If I was like, I can use the word fruity one of two ways. If I drink something and I say this is really fruity, or smell something and I say this is really fruity, we would all understand what that means. What does it mean? It means that there's like a scent or a taste of a lot of fruits. Or it can mean when I say the person, you're not going to think this person is made up of fruits, but something is fruity about this person. All right? Okay, is this clear to everybody? In the culture. In the Sharia, and we'll finish it. In the Sharia, these are the things where like you have the actual wording that has now been taken over by, like it has a different meaning in the Sharia. Like, let's say, Hajj. In the language, what does Hajj mean? It's a qasd, like so in the Sharia, it means Hajj. We go to big Hajj in Mecca. In the language, it is like a want, or like a strong want. You know, when you say like qasadtu shay, like I want, like I intend to do this thing. That's what Hajj in the language means. Salah, we said it means dua. Siyam, we said it means imsak. Or even when we began this book, he taught us fiqh. What is fiqh? What is fiqh? معرفة الأحكام الشرعية التي طريقها الاجتهاد. This is what fiqh means in this thing. Fiqh in the language means something different. It means understanding. Like again, we said prior, speech. You have speech to these people, and that would be part of urfiyya. Like literal speech to them is what we are going over today. Speech to others is not this. Speech does not break down into amrun wa nahy, only this, except to the people that are here. Are we clear? Any questions on speech or part of speech? Inshallah, tomorrow, next week, we'll go over majaz, which is the opposite of what we've spoken about. And he tells you that again, it happens in one of three ways. And if you look over, if you flip the page to page 8, you are going to see some ayats. Even though we said in this work, we are not going to see verses of the Quran or any type of like specific proofs. But he sees that it is very important for us to understand it. So he gives us some examples from the Quran. And we'll talk about this inshallah next week. Jazakumullah khairan for coming. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us for our shortcomings. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us understanding. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Plus we have, is this stop?
Nobody asked anything.
I don't really look there.
I've been keeping track of it.
No one's asking though, right?
So far, no.
Alhamdulillah.